Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 22nd September 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your examination. In the initial two articles, we have included two mains practice questions which will be highly relevant for your upcoming mains examination. So in our first topic, we'll try to understand the role of governor in Indian federal setup and the recent timelines fixed by the Supreme Court for governors to decide on state bills. In our second topic, we'll try to understand the status of MSMEs in India, their contribution in Indian economy, along with the challenges they face and the way forward. After that, in our simplified section, we'll take up 5 articles and we'll try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very crucial for your upcoming prelims and mains examinations. So have a look on them also and stay tuned. So let's start with the first topic, that is, can timelines be fixed for governors? The context of this topic is that a write-up has appeared as the Supreme Court is currently hearing a presidential reference that was made by the Honorable President of India under Article 143 of the Constitution, and this reference was made in the month of May 2025. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, Judiciary, Indian Constitution, Parliament, State Legislatures. Article 153 of the Constitution talks about the office of governor. He is the head of the states. The decisions in the states are taken in the name of governor. Article 163 says that the governor should act on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers except in the cases where discretionary powers are given to the governor by the Constitution itself. And these discretionary powers which are given to the governor has time and again remained a point of controversy. For example, various discretionary powers like based on the report of the governor, a precedent rule can be imposed in the state. If none of the parties has clear majority after an election was conducted, governor can appoint any of the person as the chief minister and then he can ask that person to prove his or her majority on the floor of the house. Or the various options that are available in front of the governor with regard to the state bills provided under Article 200 of the Constitution, that is also a kind of discretionary powers. And these powers has time and again remained a point of contention or controversy. So a bill which is a draft legislation when duly enacted becomes an act. Now, if a bill is passed by the state legislative assembly, and in the case where legislative councils are also there, if that is passed by both the houses, it will come in front of governor. And Article 200 talks about various powers, various options that are available in front of governor with regard to the state bills. Under this Article 200, the governor can give the assent to the bill will become an act, or he can withhold the assent, bill will become dead, or he can send it for the reconsideration by the house, and now if it is being passed by the house with or without amendment, governor must give the assent. Or the third option is that governor can reserve it to be considered by the president. Now comes Article 201 of the Constitution, where the various options are given to the president with regard to the state bills. He can again give assent to the bill will become an act, or he can again withhold the assent and bill will become dead, or he can or she can send it to be reconsidered by the state legislative assembly or the house of the state. Again, if it is being passed by the house, it will come in front of president itself. Now it is the president who will be deciding on that state bills. Interestingly, Constitution doesn't give any timeline within which the governor or the president should decide on the state bills. Also, this power where the governor can reserve the bill for the consideration by the president, this is discretionary in nature. Some of the factors, like if the bill is not in sync with the constitutional provisions, or it is not in sync with any of the central government laws, these are certain criteria which the governor can keep in mind while reserving that bill. But what happened that Mr. R.N. Ravi, who is the current governor of Tamil Nadu, after being appointed, it was alleged by the state government of Tamil Nadu that he was not taking decision on the state bills. That was creating a kind of policy paralysis. He was sitting on the bills. And that is the reason they filed a petition in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court in state government of Tamil Nadu versus governor of Tamil Nadu gave a timeline within which the governor and the president should decide on the state bills. Now what happened that under Article 143, the President of India made a presidential reference. Article 143 says that if the President feels that an important legal or factual issue has come up or might come up that may affect the public and needs expert advice, he can seek the opinion of the Supreme Court. The court will then look into the matter and give its advice to the President after holding any hearing it thinks are necessary. There are 14 questions that are raised by the Honorable President. For example, if any of the bill which still didn't get the assent of the Governor or President, which still is not an act or law, can the Supreme Court look into the constitutionality of that? Can the Supreme Court give any direction on that law? Or if the Constitution doesn't explicitly talks about any provisions, can Supreme Court guide the executive on the discretionary powers? These are certain questions which are raised in front of Supreme Court. So these are the various options under Article 200 and Article 201. Since this topic of Article 200 and discretionary powers of the Governor and President has remained in news for past 1 year, in prelims 2025 also there was a question that was asked, which says that Constitution of India explicitly mentions that in certain spheres the Governor of State acts in his or her own discretion. Obviously it is correct. The President of India can of his or own reserve a bill passed by a state legislature for his or her consideration without it being forwarded by the Governor of the state concerned. This is incorrect. This power is given to the Governor. He can reserve the bill and then President can decide. So the correct option was one only. A option was correct here. Also, the Article 207 says that in the case of introduction of money bills, Governor's prior recommendation is necessary. And there were certain other judgments, like in Samser Singh case of 1974. The Supreme Court said that Governor acts on the ministerial advice except in the cases where except in the rare cases of reserving bills for the President, which is a discretionary power given to the Governor. Also, the bills which are returned, they must follow the advice of the Council of Ministers, and if that is repassed by the House, then Governor must give assent to the bill. Also, there is no time limit for the actions, but the Governor should accept the return of the bill. The Governor should return the bill as soon as possible. He should not be sitting on the bill itself. It is something that in this particular case, the Supreme Court didn't fix any timeline. But with regard to the importance of any bill or any statute, they said that it should be returned as soon as possible. And they didn't go for fixing any timeline, which was done in the recent case. And in the Rameshwar Prasad case of 2006, the Supreme Court said the decision to withhold the assent, that the decision that Governor is taking, that is killing the bill, that is under the judicial review. And the Supreme Court can see that whether this power was exercised arbitrarily or not. They can look into the matter based on which that decision was taken. Also, with regard to the decision that Supreme Court took here, they said that the President must decide within 3 months of receiving a bill from the Governor. If there is any delay beyond this period, the President's office will be required to convey reasons to the state concerned that why that decision was not taken. Also, the Governor is expected to abide by the decisions of the Council of Ministers on bill that are cleared by the Assembly. State governments can directly approach Supreme Court if President withholds assent. Reserving bill for personal dissatisfaction or political expediency is impermissible. So these are the major judgments, that the various orders that were given in the judgment, and with regard to that itself, the presidential reference was made under Article 143 of the Constitution, where the 14 questions were posed by Honorable President of India. Now, what are the major issues with the Governor's role in the states? But before looking into that, what are the pros and cons of this timeline that was fixed by the Supreme Court? The people who support this idea, they says that it will prevent the unreasonable delays because the decision will be taken in due time. It will also bring judicial clarity where there is no timeline that is fixed by the Constitution. It will also help in respecting the democratic mandate of the people, because that bill which is passed by the House, where the people are getting represented based on the MLAs that they have actually elected earlier. So if there is delay with regard to the decisions that should be taken by the Governor and the President, it is also not in sync with the democratic mandate. People who oppose this idea, they says that where there is no clarity, constitutional ambiguity is there, if it is the judiciary is deciding that timeline, it is a case of judicial overreach. Also, in the cases where the hasty decisions will be taken because of the timeline that is fixed by the Supreme Court, it may lead to errors or constitutional violations that may happen in future. Also, it might fuel political tensions between the state government and the central governments in future, because deadlines may intensify the conflicts, and especially the cases where the politically sensitive cases are coming, politically sensitive bills are coming in front of the governor or the president. If you talk about major other issues, the misuse of Article 356, where the governor recommend the president rule without the floor test. If the elections happened in the state and there is no political parties with clear majority, if the governor is not giving timeline, or if the governor is not giving time to other political parties that they can go for coalitions, etc., and the president is just recommending the imposition of president rule, this further creates the tensions. And this was the case in Uttarakhand, where in 2016 such recommendations happened, but the Supreme Court overturned this judgment, and this happened because the floor test was scheduled, and even before the floor test happened, the office of governor recommended the president rule and the president rule was imposed, but it was overturned by the Supreme Court. Also, the concerns related to impartiality. For example, in Arunachal Pradesh, again the elected government was dismissed by the governor, but the Supreme Court again reversed the decision and they reinstated the government. The administrative overreach, where the office of governor has time and again is interfering in the governance, that is bypassing the elected government. For example, the government which is elected by the people, they are representing the democratic mandate, they are representing the will of the people, whereas the office of governor is not elected by the people, and if that office is interfering in governance, that is again leading to institutional frictions. For example, in the case of Delhi, where the Supreme Court said that the matter related to services are under the elected government and not under the lieutenant governor of Delhi itself, because there were a lot of controversy and issues with regard to appointments and postings of the various civil servants in the UT of Delhi. Now, in the case of West Bengal in 2023, again the governor's unilateral appointments of the VCs in the state universities, that also created the issues, that also fueled the tensions between the state government and the central government, because this is again a power that is given to the governor in most of the states, where in the state government the VC can be appointed by the governor itself, the vice chancellors, and in some of the cases the governor is appointing the vice chancellors without consulting the state government itself. That has also created a legal standoff, and this is the case not with the West Bengal. This has been issue in Kerala also, Tamil Nadu also. Also, the lack of accountability, that he is the office of governor, the governor is appointed and removed by the center itself, and there is no impeachment process that is given by the article itself. Even if for example, in the case of president, the process of impeachment is clearly given, but in the case of the governor, that is not clearly given. So it is the complete discretion of center itself, that whether they want to continue with any of the governor or they want to remove them. And Article 163 also says that the governor should act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Also, when we were talking about the president rule, except Chhattisgarh and Telangana, all of the Indian states have time and again saw the president rule. With some of the states like Manipur saw the cases of president rule almost 11 times itself. And there has been various instances where the decision of the governor and subsequent imposition of president rule criticized for not taking decisions following the due process. There are various committees who gave various recommendations. For example, the Sarkaria Commission on Center-State Relation, that gave its recommendations in 1988. Now here they said that governor should not have any statutory powers unrelated to the constitutional roles that are given by the constitution. The constitution talks that the governor should appoint the chief minister, governor should take decisions with regard to the state bills, only that role should be given to the governor. Any statutory role further should not be given either by the central government or the state governments. For example, in the case of the state universities, there are around more than 400 state universities. The appointment of VC, this power is again given to the governor itself, and that time and again creates controversy, especially in the cases where there is different government at the center and there is different government at the states. So if there will be less statutory powers that will be given, that will help in reducing the political tensions. Also, the appointment should involve consultation with the chief ministers, because governor and chief minister will have to work in sync to ensure the proper governance of the state. Also, no recent political affiliations. The people who are being appointed as the office of governor, they should not be active in present day politics, and in the cases if they are not related to any political parties, that should be motivated. Also, the limit governor's role in university affairs, also give states more control, and it is the governor who should be acting based on the aid and advice of the council of ministers. I will give you an instance. In one of the state, a governor was appointed. After being appointed, after few months, that governor resigned from the office, and then again she contested the election. She became minister in one of the state government, and currently she is the minister in one of the state, and previously she was the governor. Now you see that when these kind of cases will happen, how can we say that governor will be working in an impartial manner? Few years back, one of the governor in state of Goa, there has been various controversy with regard to that governor itself, that she asked for various high-end vehicles. There were certain other amenities that she started demanding, which earlier governors were not demanding, and which was very costly and creating a burden on the state exchequer. So these are again some of the controversies regarding the office of governor that needs to be addressed. Then the Punchi Commission of 2010, they said that governor should act on the bill within a fixed time frame, 6 months for the reserved bills. Also stricter checks on the misuse of Article 356, that is President Rule. Then Venkat Chelaiya Commission of 2002, it suggested a selection committee for governors comprising the Prime Minister of India, Home Minister, Lok Sabha Speaker and the State Chief Minister, so that a wider consultations are happening with regard to the appointment. Similarly, for example, in Anup Barnwal versus Union of India case, Supreme Court said that the election commissioners should be appointed by a committee in which there will be Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha and the CJI. After this judgment, the government came with a new law, Appointment Condition of Service Act of Election Commissions, and then they said that yes, there will be a committee that will be recommending the appointment of the election commissioners, who will be further appointed by the president. But that committee will consist Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and one other minister who will be nominated by the Prime Minister, and presently it is the Home Minister. So that shows the government will have an upper hand. Okay. But then what should be the way forward? What should be done? First of all, there is need for ensuring political neutrality. The people who are being appointed, there should not be any recent political affiliations, and a consultative process should be now taken with the chief ministers itself, so that if the chief minister has certain apprehensions with regard to the person who will be appointed, that can be addressed. Also, introducing the accountability mechanisms. State level impeachment process can be introduced by amending the constitution. Implementing periodic conduct reviews by an independent judicial commission. For example, this judicial commission can actually look up to various allegations which are imposed on the governor and how that can be addressed in future. Also, limiting the discretionary power under Article 160. We can amend the Article 160 to restrict the use of discretionary power and limit it to exceptional constitutional cases, or in the cases where national interest takes upper hand. Also, the prescribed timelines for the assents under Article 200 and 201. Why is there need by the Supreme Court to fix this timeline? Why is that? Because government or the constitution doesn't talk about that. If the central government or the parliament is amending the constitution and they can introduce a clear timeline, there will not be any need for such kind of timeline by the Supreme Court. Also codify the 3-month line for the governors and the president to act on the bills. Also prevent the misuse of article 356. For example, we should have objective evidence. There should be a clear objective criteria based on which the report should be presented by the governor, and subsequent president rules should be imposed. And there should be a mandatory floor test before recommending the president rule. Also apply strict judicial scrutiny. That was also said in the SR Bommai case of 1994, where the Supreme Court said that they can look up to the matter based on which the president rule was imposed. And if it was done arbitrarily, then the president rule can be called as null and void. Also, it can be used only as a matter of last resort after exhausting all constitutional options. For example, their other parties can be given an option to prove their majority, coalition can be preferred, all those things can be taken. Also, we can restrict the overreach in the state matters. For example, the limits can be defined, role in university administration, bureaucratic appointments. If the roles will be defined, obviously it will not create cases where the tensions will erupt. Also establish transparent selection process, set up a panel including the Prime Minister, Home Minister, Lok Sabha Speaker and state CMs for the governor appointment, which was also said by the Venkat Chelaiya Commission. And this is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. Moving towards next topic, that is MSMEs, India's engine of self-reliance. So yesterday at 5 p.m, the Prime Minister addressed the nation, and he stated that to make India self-reliant and achieve the goal of Viksit Bharat or developed country by 2047, a significant responsibility lies with the MSMEs, because they will be the engine of overall economy growth. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, growth and development, industrial policy and industrial growth. So recently the MSME criteria has been revised. That what is the criteria based on which any company can be either called as micro, small or medium enterprise. So the change that was done in the budget, that if the investment is less than 1 crore and turnover is less than 5 crore, that will be called as a micro enterprise. If the investment is less than 10 crore and turnover is less than 50 crore, that will be called as a small enterprise. And the medium enterprises will be those where the investment is less than 20 crore and turnover is less than 100 crore. Now, what is investment and turnover? Investment refers to the amount that is spent on the plants and machineries or equipments for businesses. It shows the capital that is used to set up or to expand the business establishment. Whereas the turnover refers to the total amount of sales or the revenue that was generated by the enterprises, and it mainly reflects the scale of business operations of that enterprise. If you look into this data, that what is the share of MSMEs across gross value added in India's GDP, this is the data from again budget. This shows that in 2020-21 it was 27.3% and it increased to 30.1% in year 2022-23. And if you look into the value in lakh crore about the MSME export, it increased to 12.39 lakh crore in year 2024-25, and there has been a 3x increase from 2020-21 where it was 3.95 lakh crore. These kind of graphs you can also draw in the mains answers that you will be writing, and that will bring the novelty in your answers. That this is the innovation or differentiating factors we keep on talking to you people. We keep on recommending to you people that please try to incorporate these kind of differentiating factors like maps, diagrams, flowcharts, etc. that can help you in fetching some extra marks in the mains answers that you will be writing. Now, what is the role of MSME in Indian economy? First of all, the GDP and the industrial growth rate. GDP is the total monetary value of all the goods and services that are produced in the domestic territory during financial year. And all the sectors of economy actually contribute in the GDP growth rate. And MSME, being an important pillar, also helps in strengthening the domestic supply chain as well as developing the industrial clusters. And if you look into this data from ESCOM and Agro, it says that the MSME in financial year 24 contributed 30% to GDP, 46% to exports and 45% to manufacturing output. Also, it is one of the largest non-farm job providers. It provides around 7.5 crore jobs, and this is the data again of financial year 24. It also ensures in deburdening the agriculture sector, which contributes 16.1% to GDP, and 46.1% is the employment generation by the agriculture, and majority of the disguised unemployment that is witnessed in the agriculture, that MSME sector is helping in addressing that issue of disguised unemployment. Also, exports and the global reach, that again we have seen that it is helping us in getting around 45.73% of India's export in financial year 24, and especially some of the labor intensive sectors like textiles, leather, engineering goods, we are getting a better reach because of the competitiveness of our products in the global market. We need to understand that we have significant amount of raw material that is available, we have cheap labor, we have hands that can help in producing, but we do not have proper entrepreneurial skill, we do not have that risk taking ability, and that is the reason government is promoting that MSME, with the help of which we can take a leap, we can take benefits, we can be part of overall global supply chains. Also, the digital and the tech transformation, that now the 72% of MSMEs transactions are happening digital, whether it is the loan disbursement that is happening, whether it is the invoicing that is happening, or the payments that are happening, or most of that is happening in the digital forms. Also, this is driven by the ONDC, that is Open Network of Digital Commerce, or as well as the government e-marketplace, where the MSMEs can list their products and themselves, and government will be procuring, whether it is the central government, state government, or other agencies, they will be procuring from this government e-marketplace itself. So with that, the MSMEs are further integrating in the digital arenas, and 1 lakh crore innovation fund was given, RBI's credit platform, all that is helping in ensuring that there is more digital integration, based on which the MSME's growth potential can be further enhanced. The women and the social impact. Women owns around 20.5% of Udyam registered MSMEs. Some of the good MSMEs, for example, in the case of this Lijjat Papad, etc., it is mainly taken by the women itself. And apart from that, let's suppose if you talk about the Stand Up India scheme, where the loans are provided to the women entrepreneurs, more than 50% of the loans were given to the women beneficiaries under that particular scheme. Under this Stand Up India scheme, there were various other beneficiaries like SC and ST population. Also, the rural and the agro enterprises, it is going to help in addressing the migration, especially the rural to urban migration. That what is happening when there is lack of proper availability of the jobs in rural areas, people are coming to the urban areas, and here with the more burden that is increasing in the urban centers, it is creating problems for urban centers also. There is lack of proper civic facility, civic amenities. For example, the sanitation facilities are not there, potable waters are not there, plus the traffic problem, all that is happening. Plus, if there will be more influx from rural to urban areas, it will also create tensions or law and order situations that might happen in the urban areas, which is actually witnessed in most of the urban centers. But with MSMEs being located in the rural areas or semi-urban centers, this migration we will be also able to address. Along with that, it will help in bringing the rural prosperity. Also, green and sustainable growth, that adopting clean energy and circular economy models that reduce, reuse and recycle. That this clean tech manufacturing was again said by the budget 2025 under the larger theme of National Manufacturing Mission. So the MSMEs time and again is also shifting to these greener alternatives, that is also helping them to make their products more competitive. For example, comprehensive border adjustment mechanism, which is a parameter of EU, that until and unless your product will not be complying with the CBAM norms, that your product's carbon footprint is in sync with what is mandated by CBAM, there can be an extra duty that might be imposed on the products. So with green and sustainable growth that is being used by the MSMEs, these products remain more competitive. And if you look into the number of MSMEs unit, it is the Maharashtra which is taking leap, and with more than 7 lakh units, and this is the data of 2021. Also, the RAMP program that is supported by the World Bank, that is also helping in improving the efficiency and the productivity of the MSMEs. But there are certain challenges that are faced by the MSMEs. For example, limited access to the credit. Credit being one of the important contributing factor, especially the working capital that will ensure that there is consistent production that is happening. At first CRISIL, there are only 20% of MSMEs which are getting access to the formal credit, and 2.5 crore out of 6.3 crore MSMEs only avail the institutional finance, and majority of them are dependent on non-institutional finances where there is less requirement of collateral. But the problem is that the non-institutional finances charges much higher interest rate, where the profitability of these MSMEs gets hampered because majority of their profits or revenues is given to address that need of the interest that for the loans that they have earlier taken. Also, the regulatory burden, complex overlapping regulations with regard to the labor, taxation and environment. For example, there are central level regulations, state level regulations, urban local level body related regulations, the safety fire norms, then the labor codes, whether that is being implemented or not, the buildings, whether it is in compliance with the state norms or not. So since we do not have a clear regulatory framework, it creates problems for the MSMEs to comply with those norms, and then that further limits their overall growth. Also, the frequent policy changes and high compliance cost. For example, the GST rates that were much higher and which has been rationalized recently with the next generation reforms. Then skill and the technology gap, the limited skilled workforce. As of now, most of the units are using obsolete technologies which is not helping in limiting the cost of production, which is not helping in making the products more competitive at the global or the domestic level. They are using outdated machineries. Only 6% of MSMEs use e-commerce for the sales. The e-commerce has helped in ensuring that these companies has a wider reach, but because of lack of awareness, because of lack of digital integrations, these MSME units are not able to use that properly. 45% have adopted any form of AI as per the Ministry of MSME survey. With the infrastructure constraint like the poor connectivity, high logistics cost, which is around 14 to 18% of GDP, which is much higher as compared to the global average of 8%. That 14 to 18% is set by the World Bank. Also, the limited access to industrial park, high speed internet and common facilities. Then the issues related to consistent supply of the electricity, issues related to the land acquisitions, etc. That also creates the problems, and it becomes really difficult for MSMEs to become bigger. But there are certain other challenges. For example, market access and the global competitiveness, low integration with the global value chains, lack of proper knowledge about branding, marketing of the products, lack of proper knowledge about the export supports that are being provided to the MSMEs units, and the quality compliance, like lack of adherence to the sanitary and the phytosanitary norms that they need to follow. For example, the MDH and Everest Masala of India was sent back by Hong Kong, Singapore and EU. Why? Because there was presence of ethylene oxide beyond permissible limit, and this ethylene oxide is actually used in pharma industry for sterilization, but it is also used in spices to prevent the germination of worms. But in India, they are selling anything, but the global parameters are much more stringent, and if that is not being followed, our product will get a negative image, and that will further reduce the competitiveness of our product. So we need to give proper awareness to these people to comply with these norms. Also, the low scheme awareness and utilizations, for example, complex application process that deter first time and rural entrepreneurs. That banks will be asking for collateral, various other documents which these first time entrepreneurs needs to produce so that they can get the institutional credit, but they find it difficult to produce those documents, and that is the reason they do not have any other option rather going to the non-institutional credit. The sustainability and the ESG compliance. ESG means environmental, social and governance compliance. For example, MSME units emits around 110 million tons of carbon dioxide annually as per Center for Study 2018. Now, when they have high carbon footprint, these products will not be competitive. For example, the comprehensive border adjustment mechanism CBAM that we have talked. So these products will not be competitive at the EU market because there will be an additional tariff that will be imposed on these products because their carbon footprint is much higher. Also, the high cost of green technology, the transition from the non-green to green technology, that is highly capital intensive, that also deter them towards shifting to the green technology. Also, the non-compliance will be risking the export losses because their products will remain less competitive. If you look into again this data of number of MSMEs that are there in India, the states like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, these are the states where we have a high number of MSME units. For example, the Uttar Pradesh contributes around 9% to the overall MSME. Now, what exactly happens that these are the states which are providing proper capacity building, proper hand holding to MSMEs. The regulatory burden is less, proper support is provided based on the capital, etc. And that is the reason we are seeing proper MSME architecture in these states. Now, there are certain initiatives which are taken by the government to support MSMEs, like the Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for MSMEs that provides loan up to 5 crore without collateral. Mudra Yojana that was launched in 2015 that provides around that provides support to the entrepreneurs, and 27.8 lakh crore were disbursed till financial year 24. Priority sector lending norms where the special certain amount of loans should be mandatorily given to certain sectors, and MSME is one such sector, and 7.5% of the total credit is mandated for MSMEs. And then Udyam registration portal, 5.93 crore MSMEs registered, and it is also linked to the financial services. They are linked to GST portal, etc. Also, trade receivables discounting system, which is a digital platform for bill discounting from corporates and government buyers. And then emergency credit line guarantee schemes that under this 3.61 lakh crore were dispersed to MSMEs till financial year 2024. Also, there were certain initiatives that were taken by the SIDBI, that 59 minutes portal for instant loan approvals, Sampark and Samadhan portals, which is providing online resolution of payment delays, vendor registration, MSME champions portal, that is single window for finance, technology, upgradation and export support. But what should be done, how we can address the underlying issues? First of all, as per UK Sinha committee, the cash flow based lending should be provided to ensure these MSMEs are getting proper money for the working capital. TREDS should be expanded to other units, and GST linked credit history, that what is the sales of that company, that should be also one of the factors to provide capital to these MSMEs, so that most of the capital is going towards the productive units. KV Kamath committee that came in 2020, they said that sector wise restructuring framework can happen, MSMEs debt resolution guidelines can happen. These guidelines can provide an overall mandate to the banks, etc. But also we need to expand the digital credit access. We can use the Udyam, Aadhaar, Bhim UPI for the low cost and collateral free loans. And then we have the account aggregator. For example, secure data sharing should happen. Sahay GST enables invoice based digital lending, that needs to be expanded. Plus the issues related to privacy, issues related to the cyber attacks, they needs to be addressed properly. Cash flow lending that linked the GST and data to account aggregators, shift from asset based to revenue based credit, that is again that was recommended by UK Sinha. That will again help in ensuring that the working capital needs of those MSMEs which are highly products, they are getting addressed. Formalization push, that we can link loans to GST invoices, that can incentivize the GST registration. We can also targeted credit guarantees, focus on salons, tourism, rural MSMEs during the crisis, and especially the area based approach can be followed rather than a centralized approach, bottom to up approach, that if there is a particular unit where there is a different need, for example tourism potential is much higher, so accordingly support can be provided to that particular unit. Also strengthen SIDBI with more infusion. Also boost the non-banking financial companies funding with more support to them. And then Vyapar credit card can be provided to MSME unit based on the Kisan credit card, which was expanded also to 5 lakh rupees per person in the budget 2025, and it is a model for MSMEs. It will help in addressing the working capital loan needs of the MSME unit. Similarly, the short-term capital needs are getting addressed by Kisan credit card for the farmers. Also the system-wide KYC, know your customer norms, that we can shift to unified KYC via these account aggregators, that will help in faster onboarding and lower friction in the process. If you talk about certain best practices that can be followed, the Mittelstand model of Germany can be followed, which was also mentioned in economic survey. Now these are the family owned and operated enterprises, and most of these firms work in niche markets. For example, precision tools, machineries, the markets which are emerging markets, which are more in demand and whose demand will be increasing in future, and that helps in making them profitable, making them competitive. Such kind of models can be also replicated in India. For example, why the government went with the reclassification of MSME, because they were plaguing, the MSMEs were plaguing with the issue of dwarfism, where these units or establishments were limiting their growth so that their benefits related to MSMEs doesn't vanish. And that is the reason government increased the turnover criteria, government increased the investment criteria, so that they also become bigger. So with proper capacity building and hand holding of these MSME units, they can also become a global giants. And this is one of the main practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. Moving towards simplified section, the problem with low inflation. This is related to your GS paper 3, growth and development, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 14. So earlier this month, 2 sets of inflation data were released by the government. Both were heartening for Indian households. First came the retail inflation data, which showed that consumer price index based CPI inflation stood at 2.07% in August. Next was inflation based on wholesale price index, with prices up a mere 0.5% from August 2024. So what this shows, that inflation to a larger extent had softened. Inflation is the general increase in the overall price levels of goods and services. But what happened, that when we talk about the GDP, that is total monetary value of all the goods and services that are produced in the domestic territory during a financial year, there are 2 ways by which we calculate the GDP. One is the real GDP and second is the nominal GDP. The real GDP is actually calculated at a fixed prices or at constant prices, where the nominal GDP is calculated at current prices. So the nominal GDP is unadjusted for inflation, where real GDP is adjusted for inflation, where prices are chosen by a base year itself. Plus, what happens, that this nominal GDP figures which are released in the budget, that also helps in getting an idea what will be the overall tax devolution of the government. Because since most taxes are levied on income, consumption and profits, a higher nominal GDP typically means a larger tax base and higher revenue potential. That is the reason if the nominal GDP is decreasing because of the decrease in the overall inflation in the economy, that means that overall tax base might also decrease because of the less economic activities that might happen. Plus, if you look into this again data, that they said that the nominal GDP growth was at a 3-quarter low of 8.8%, and the growth rate, the real GDP growth rate, unexpectedly rose to 5-quarter high of 7.8% in the quarter of April to June. Also, Union Budget 25-26 says that the nominal GDP at current fiscal would be 357 lakh crore and 10.1% higher from the revised estimate of 324 lakh crore for 2024-25. And it is used to guide how much tax collection will happen, because based on the economic activity, based on the income, consumption and profits, a higher nominal GDP will ensure a higher tax revenue with the government. But with inflation being low, nominal GDP growth has been weaker than anticipated so far, and GDP after all is just the final value of goods and services. With low growth in prices can lead to GDP growth being subdued even if the production increases somewhat, because the prices are decreasing. While we calculate the real GDP, let's suppose 10 chocolates were produced and the cost of each chocolate was 10 rupees. So here, let's suppose the GDP is 100 rupees. But this is the case of, let's suppose, 2024. In 2025, let's suppose 20 chocolates were produced and 20 was the cost of each chocolate because of increase in cost of raw materials or increase in transportation cost. Here again, the real GDP will be 20 into 10. 10 is the price that we have fixed for with 2024. The real GDP will be 200, but the nominal GDP will be 400. That is, we are calculating that as the current prices itself. Also, the central government's gross tax revenue was just 1% year on year, while the net tax revenue was down 7.5%. 8%, and that is the reason it is creating concerns with the government. Also, the low inflation trajectory is good news for consumers because we will be getting prices at lower prices, and with the GST rate reductions also there will be low prices that we will be getting, especially for the consumer goods, and the government is thinking that will help in increasing the consumption expenditure, consumption demand, and which will contribute to overall economic growth rate. Also, impact of slower GDP growth is clearly visible in government finances and tax collection growth, trailing the financial year 26 budget targets. Also, the Indian economy over the last 13 years, the actual nominal growth of the Indian economy has been lower than the budget assumptions on 9 occasions, and the recent past though is in the government's favor. In the 3 of the last 4 years, the nominal growth has been higher than what the budget has anticipated because of increase in economic growth rate, because increase in the production, as well as increase in the prices of goods and services. That the inflation that was consistently higher in last few years, especially after the supply chain disruption that started after COVID-19. Also, there is also what is called as base effect. The GDP for 24-25 has now been revised higher by 2% to 331 lakh crore. This means that to meet the budget assumption of 357 lakh crore for the current financial year, the nominal GDP growth only has to grow 8%. That if the last figure was much less, so even if we will be growing moderately, our prices will, or our figures will be much higher. This is the case of base effect, which was also witnessed in the case of V-shaped recovery after the COVID-19. Also, meeting the nominal GDP number is important for two indicators: the fiscal deficit and central government debt, both of which measured as percentage of nominal GDP. So what is the fiscal deficit as percentage of GDP? How that is calculated? When we divide fiscal deficit by nominal GDP multiplied by 100%. In that case, if the nominal GDP will be too high, in that case fiscal deficit will show to a lower amount. But what we are witnessing, that nominal GDP figures are decreasing, and that might show a higher fiscal deficit. Similarly, if we talk about the debt to GDP ratio, again if the GDP figures are reducing because nominal GDP are reducing because inflation is reducing, in that case again the debt to GDP ratio also seems to be much higher. And also the economists already expect the nominal GDP growth to be well below the budget estimate, with those from Morgan Stanley expecting it to come at 8.3% for the full year. Also, is the low inflation always bad? That low inflation is not always bad when it comes to impacting nominal GDP growth rate. What matters is why it is low. It is best if prices are subdued because of oversupply and not because of over demand. Because if there is oversupply, that means the goods and services are being produced more by the establishment industries, and that is creating more jobs. More jobs means more income, and that will also fuel more consumption expenditure, more consumption from the people. But if it is due to less consumption, less demand, that will also limit the industrial growth, that will also limit the overall production of goods and services. And when the production of goods and services are declining, that means that the employment generation will also be diminishing, and that will also further limit the money that will available with the people, and that will further reduce the consumption expenditure. Also, the RBI from last month showed that while private companies saw a 5.5% rise in sales, the net profit also rose at far more rapid 17.6%. For private manufacturing, the variations was even more stark. But we have a situation where corporate profit margins are robust, but they are sitting on large cash pile. They are not doing capital expenditure. They are not spending that in improving the technology, in the machineries, equipments, etc. Why? Because they don't see robust demand. But with recent initiatives that were taken, for example GST rate rationalization, or the repo rate that were reduced, or the 8th pay commission that was announced, people will have more money in their hand, but the products will be available at much lower prices, and that will help us in increasing the consumption demand, and that will also motivate these companies to invest in the economy. And also the strong productivity growth could be one potential theoretical reasons for the low inflation, that these companies, with whatever technologies and capital expenditure they already have done, they are able to produce more of goods and services, that is leading to a proper value of these products at a proper prices. Also, there would not be much reason to worry because about urban wage growth rate and demand if the productivity growth was rising. If the productivity is rising of the companies, that is not a major concern. If you'll talk about the various indicators of inflation, the WPI, which is a wholesale price index that represent the price of goods at wholesale stages, that is goods that are sold in bulk and traded between organization instead of consumers. The base year is again 2011-12, and it is the primary articles having weightage of 22.62%, fuel and power having weightage of 13.15%, manufactured products having weightage of 64.23%. The CPI that tracks the change in retail price of goods and services which household purchases for their daily consumption. Here the base year is changed to 2024, and this will be applicable from the first quarter of financial year 26. And now the basket also based on which the CPI is calculated, that is also going to be revised, and the MOSPI is saying that will be based on household consumption expenditure. And NSO under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation releases the CPI data. Also, the producer price index that measures the wholesale prices from the point of view of producer of goods and services by tracking the prices at different stages of production to get an idea whether the cost of raw material are increasing, whether the cost of transportation are increasing, or there is something else that is impacting the overall production cost. It looks at inflation from the viewpoint of industry and businesses and measures the price changes before consumer purchases final goods and services. Next topic is that how different are supercomputers to normal computer. This is related to GS paper 3, IT and computers, achievements of Indians in science and technology, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 11. So the supercomputers are the giants of computing world. While a normal laptop might let you browsing the web, typing essays or doing some of the common works like making a document, reading, watching movies, etc. But these supercomputers are designed to perform the big task. For example, the weather forecasting, where they will be getting data from the various indicators and they will be using that data, they will be compiling that data, they will be processing that data, and based on that they will be doing the weather forecasting. And then the simulating the nuclear reaction, modeling and early universe all depend on them. Even in the newer technologies that are being utilized by ISRO, etc., these big supercomputers are now being used. But how the supercomputer actually work? At the heart of supercomputer is the idea that instead of making one processor work extremely fast, it is often better to use thousands or even millions of processors working at the same time itself, which is called as parallel computing. Whatever the computers or the laptops that we uses, there is one processor or few processors are there. But here in the supercomputers, there are a lot of processors that are used, and there are different tasks that are assigned to them, and simultaneously they all are performing those tasks, and that is the case of parallel computing. And each processor tackles a small part of problem. While their solutions are combined, they add up to complete answers more quickly that one processor couldn't manage on its own. If there will be only one processor, it will take a lot of time to do all the tasks that are assigned. But if that problem is broken into small pieces and now there are different processors which will performing those tasks, it will take less time to perform that task. Also, modern computers are not single machines in everyday sense, but a vast collection of components which are organized into layers. For example, first is processors are the supercomputers workers. They are the actual performers. A central processing unit is good at handling general tasks, while a graphics processing unit, which was originally used in the gaming industries or the video games, is very good at handling the repetitive mathematical operations which are common in scientific simulations. For example, if the weather data is being compiled and the average of that data is being used, the CPU and GPU can help in that. Also, node is a group of processors that is bundled together with a memory, that a package that resembles a small computer, and a supercomputer might contain thousands of such nodes, because this will help in bundling the processors. The nodes are connected to each other in high-speed network in which the data is transmitted much faster than through the home internet connections, the Wi-Fi that we and you use. Also, each node has its own memory for quick access to data. For large amounts of information, the supercomputer uses the storage system that can hold the petabytes, that millions of gigabytes, and a specialized file system to ensure the thousands of nodes can read and write information in memory without chaos, without any delay, without any latency. And all these activity produce enormous heat, and that is the reason a proper cooling chamber is needed to ensure that that heat is not damaging the components of the supercomputer. Also, a consistent supply of the electricity is needed to run the supercomputer smoothly. Also, what software they use parallel programming languages like message passing interfaces. They also need the speed as well as supercomputer immense power consumption. The load balancing is another key issue, because to maintain the speed as well as the power consumption, because consistent supply of power is needed. It should not be the case that there is trip that is happening or the power loss that is happening. Why? Because there is too much of power that is being demanded by the supercomputer, and the performance of these computers are actually measured in flops or floating point operations per unit. And today's top supercomputer operates in range of exaflops, that is performing quintillions 1018 of operations every second. And in other words, a single exaflop machine can perform more calculation in 1 second than every human on earth could perform on a calculator in their entire lifetime. Also, in these computers there is a scheduler, which is a computer program that manages the queue of tasks from many users and assign them to the available nodes in the supercomputers. Nodes were the compilations of those processes. Also, the supercomputer is less like a giant laptop and more like a telescope or particle accelerator, that it is helping in improving the decision making, faster decision making. Also, India's first supercomputer was developed by CDAC in 1991, and that was Param series starting from Param 8000, and this was started in 1988 with the indigenous supercomputer development. Also, the Indian government launched this national supercomputing mission in 2015 as a joint project of Department of Science and Technology and Ministry of Electronics and Technology. Also, this will be implemented by CDAC and Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and its goal is to build a network of 70 plus high performance computing facilities across India. India's current fastest supercomputer is Aravat PSAI at CDAC in Pune, and it is ranked inside the top 100 in the canonical top 500 list worldwide. Other Param series are located in IITs and various other institutes. Also, this Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology hosts Pratyush, which was also one of the fastest supercomputer in India that is used for weather forecasting. Also, the CDAC remains a principal designer and integrator of supercomputer. In future, further enhancement is going to happen. Faster decision making will happen with the help of quantum computers, which uses the principle of quantum mechanics that promises a new way of handling certain types of problems that can reduce the use of hardware and energy demand. And at the same time, exascale computing, which is already beginning to arrive, is pushing the limits of what classical machines can do. For example, a machine called Jupiter in Germany became Europe's first exascale supercomputer. Also, there are new designs inspired by human brain with the name neuromorphic computing, where processing and memory will be installed on a single chip that will be potentially yielding significant gains in energy, efficiency and speeds. Less energy will be required, faster decision making will happen. This national supercomputing mission launched in 2015 with an objective to make India one of the world leaders in supercomputing, also enhance India's capability in solving grand challenges, problem of national and global relevance. Key goal is to attain global competitiveness and ensure self-reliance in a strategic area of supercomputing technology, jointly developed by DST, DT, CDAC, ISC, etc. And if you talk about the world's most powerful supercomputer, it is El Capitan of USA. After that, it is the Frontier and Aurora. All these three are from United States of America. Moving towards next topic, that is government to conduct study on smog eating technology to combat air pollution. And this is related to your GS paper 3, conservation environmental pollution. And this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 2. So the environment minister of the UT of Delhi said that his department will conduct a technology that is backed by the study on titanium oxide, which is also called as smog eating photocatalytic coatings that can be applied to roads to fortify the capital's air protection efforts. Because this technology can reduce the nitrogen dioxide and harmful hydrocarbons in spaces where people live, because this has good absorption capabilities. And the technology has been used in some of the cities abroad, but it is as of now not in use in India. Also, this will be effective and cost efficient, and this titanium oxide as a coating has its advantages for being low cost, chemically stable, and it is also known for its compatibility with various construction materials like cements, bricks, etc. And the evaluation will be first done with regard to the safety, sustainability, cost effectiveness, and that after that it will come in front of the Cabinet of Delhi. So this titanium dioxide powder, it is used as pigment and thickener for creams, and also used as sunscreen for its transparency and UV absorbing abilities, and it is used beyond paints, plastic, paper, pharmaceuticals, and it has benefits in various other uses in food and drug colorant, plastic colorant, inks and paints, ceramics, cosmetics, sunscreen component, and in various other industries like photovoltaic cells and drug delivery, etc. Next topic is that accept Center's Memorandum of Understanding for Samgra Shiksha Fund, the Union Education Minister said to Tamil Nadu, and this is related to your GS paper 2 education, and this has appeared to the Hindu page number 13. So again, reiterating the government's position for the disbursal of funds to Tamil Nadu under the Samgra Shiksha program, Union Minister said that state government could not put political priorities over the interest of students. So when National Education Policy 2020 came, so the funds of Samgra Shiksha Abhiyan, which is a centrally sponsored scheme, the funds that are given to state is based on the implementation of National Education Policy 2020. For example, 3-language formula that is mandated by NEP, whether the states are implementing that or not. And Tamil Nadu government has certain apprehensions with regard to 3-language formula, and that is the reason they were not able to implement that. And the education minister is saying that if you will not be implementing that, obviously we will not be able to give the funds under the Samgra Shiksha, because that is directly linked to that itself. Okay. And he said that country has adopted the national education policy and one has to go, every state has to follow. Also, what was the MOU that offered by the government of India for dispersal of Samgra Shiksha Fund? That mandates introduction of 3-language formula as opposed to the Tamil Nadu's long-standing 2-language policy among the other conditions. Now, what is this Samgra Shiksha scheme? It is under the Ministry of Education and it is a centrally sponsored scheme. Objective is to provide quality education, enhance learning outcomes and bridge social and gender gaps, ensure equity and inclusion, maintain minimum schooling standards, also to promote vocational education, support Right to Education Act and its implementation, strengthen the state training institutes for the teacher training. Also, it will be aligning with the SDG 4.1 and 4.5. The key interventions that will be under this scheme: universal access, infrastructure development, retention strategies, gender and equity enhancing focus on girls education, inclusive education, special provisions for marginalized group, quality enhancement, strengthening the teacher educational institutions. That under this also there are various other programs like PMG Disa etc. that were launched. Vocational education, that is also based on the Gandhiji's ideas, and integrating skill-based learning for class 9 to 12 that people can earn while learning also. Digital education, that implementing operational digital board and other ICT initiatives. Swachhata activities like specific provisions for Swachhata activities under Swachh Vidyalaya. Teacher training, strengthening the SCRTs and diets as the nodal teacher training. Moving towards next topic, that is Bagram Air Base, and this is related to your prelims topic, places in news, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 16. Now, why this is important? Because UPSC in year 2018 asked about one of the location, Mazar-e-Sharif, which is there in Afghanistan. This is Mazar-e-Sharif and this is the Bagram Air Base, which is near Kabul, and this is also near to the China border. So it is a major airfield approximately 40 km north of Afghanistan capital Kabul, and it was originally built by Soviet Union in 1950s. It served as primary hub for US and NATO operations in Afghanistan from 2001 until the withdrawal of US forces in August 2021. After 9/11 attack, whatever the operations that were started by US and NATO, initially they started from this Bagram Air Base itself. Now, Afghan government has said that the deal over Bagram Air Base was not possible after US president said that he wanted the former US base back, and it is the largest air base in Afghanistan, located north of the capital Kabul. It was center of US operations for their 20 years war against the Taliban. And if Afghanistan doesn't give back Bagram Air Base back to those that built it, the United States of America, to USA, bad things are going to happen, as said by the US president. And the Afghanistan minister said that a deal or even an inch of Afghanistan soil is not possible. We don't need it. Also, Mr. Trump has repeatedly criticized the loss of this base, noting to its proximity to the China itself. It will be good to see that how things unfold in future. But please remember the location to which particular country this belongs to. This may be asked as one of the potential questions in the prelims examination. This is all from today's analysis. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.